Am I the asshole for telling my mom she needs to own her marriage failing and not blame me? My mom is going through a divorce right now. She and her husband have been together, married for 18 years. She and her husband got married when I was 7, 10 months after my dad died, and it was rough. I was so mad at the time. I told her she didn't love my dad as much as me if she could replace him that quick. She would get mad at me and tell me I shouldn't say that and she had a right to be happy. I told her she should have waited because I wasn't ready. For about 5 years we had the same fight almost every day, because she would expect me to be happy and bond with her husband and I just couldn't. I had no therapy to help me cope, and I saw my mom move on really fast and then have this new person who was trying to play the role I wanted only my dad to have. It was tough. When the fighting stopped, our relationship remained fractured and we basically coexisted. Fast forward to today and my mom and I talk very rarely, but that's about it. She told me about the divorce at Christmas, and then earlier this month she told me she needed me to apologize for my role in this. That by saying so often that she couldn't have loved my dad if she remarried so fast, I made it stick in her head and left her with doubts and guilt, and it destroyed her marriage and her happiness. I told her she could not put that on me. I was a grieving kid she refused to help. And that she needed to own her part in her marriage failing. She said at the very least I should apologize for being so cruel to her when she was trying to be happy. I told her I didn't owe her that when she couldn't even help me after my dad died. The only reason I'm posting here is I know I said it a lot, and maybe even though I was a kid when it happened, I should apologize now, I don't know. Or maybe you will all say I did basically ruin her marriage. I feel like I need to know. Am I the asshole? Not the asshole, you were a kid. That didn't get any help dealing with the loss of your dad. Your mom were the adult and should have dealt with the situation better. The nerve of this woman to ask you to apologize is really flabbergasting. Not the asshole. You were 7. A child. A grieving child that needed help to cope and process big emotions that most adults struggle with. And she let you down. You didn't ruin her happiness, she did that to herself. Not the asshole. This one hits close to home, so it is hard to stay objective. Adults make their own choices. Those choices come with consequences, sometimes good, sometimes bad. You were a child who lost their father and had no way of dealing with it or understanding, so you lashed out and blamed. Was it the best way to handle things? Probably not, but if is what you had in your tool belt at the time. Your mom had plenty of tools and chose to move on. Anything she did or didn't do in her marriage is on her. Not you. Not the asshole. Her number one responsibility was making sure you were okay. I'm sorry about your dad. Edit. Let alone her blaming you for instilling doubt in her head. That's a master blame game move right there. You were a kid. Not the asshole. She is an adult, fully capable of making her own choices, and she is trying to pin all this on a 7-year-old child. She is a major R. I'm sure Shush is feeling many emotions, but she should not be taking it out on you. I honestly think she needs some form of therapy to work through her thought process. Losing your father at 7 must have been traumatizing. I can't imagine how it would have been to have to live with a stranger just 10 months later without emotional support. Hugs op. You were just a kid. I hope your mom realizes how wrong she is. Not the asshole. You were a 7-year-old and it hadn't even been a year before your mom moved on and tried to replace your father. Also, if you really ruined her happiness 18 years ago, how did she manage to stay with new husband for almost 2 decades? That is all her. Maybe her guilt finally caught up with her, or maybe they had some other issue that led to the divorce. Either way, there is no way this is your fault. She is a grown woman that left a child, who just lost their father, basically grow up with little to no support. Not the asshole. Her first priority as a parent should have been helping you through the death of your father, not her own happiness. So whatever you said as a child when she was the adult has nothing to do with a divorce 18 years later. Not the asshole. It's not your fault you were a kid grieving and missing your dad. No, your mum probably didn't deserve your comments either, but you are defo not the asshole. Not the asshole. You have the right to your feelings. In this case, the parent should have put the kid's needs first and clearly didn't. Holy shit. You are not the asshole in this scenario. You were 7. 10 months between one husband's death and her marriage to the second is absolutely insane. I'm really kind of surprised that her marriage to this guy lasted so long, to be honest. Is your mom one of those people who constantly blames other people for her failings? Because she failed you utterly and completely by putting her happiness above your grief. You were 7. It was her responsibility as your parent to make sure you were happy, not the other way around. Not the asshole. And let's be clear. Even if you hadn't been a child, her marriage and doubts and decisions and emotional maturity are still no one else's responsibility. Not the asshole. You were a kid, a grieving one at that, you didn't and still don't have any blame on the situation. Is your mom for real? I'm so sorry for everything you went through with the loss of your dad and then all the crap your mom piled on afterwards. 100% not the asshole. Mom, if your relationship was so fragile that a grieving 7-year-old child lashed out because of your actions 18 years ago caused your divorce, then you've got loads of problems, lady, not the asshole. Sounds like everyone else is to blame but her. Good Lord. The marriage lasted 18 years. If she truly was affected by your words, it would have died within a short time. She's rewriting history and using you as a scapegoat. She really has a problem taking responsibility for her own decisions, doesn't she? Definitely not the asshole. The biggest issue is why she is willing to deliberately hurt her child so she can play the victim. I suspect she's twisted your sense of normal, otherwise you wouldn't feel the need to ask if you are tar. Rest easy knowing that you are absolutely not the asshole. Not the asshole. Your mother ruined her own marriage and her relationship with you. You are absolutely right that she has to take ownership of her own problems, missteps. You were a child. This is not your fault at all. Not the asshole. You were a grieving child who needed help and support. You needed a parent who put you first, not herself. You had no part in her marriage failing despite what she's trying to claim. You owe her no apology. Dear Mom, I was 7 years old and grieving my father's death without any help from you. I'm sorry a 7-year-old child caused you so much doubt that your marriage failed 18 years later. Op. Will that be sufficient for her? Info. You say this started when you were 7, and this fight happened for about 5 years. Does this mean by the time you were about 12, you stopped having this fight? NTA. Seriously, what wrong with her? No therapy, no talks with a kid and dumping a new dad on him less than a year from bio dad's death. And now this. I think she needs therapy too, and of course do not blame yourself. Not the asshole. That is disgusting of her to place her own insecurities and blame her failed marriage on a 7-year-old child. You did not ruin her marriage and you do not owe her an apology. She is a grown woman, and I understand she was also grieving, but blaming you for this is wrong. You are not out of line. Not the asshole. You were 7 and grieving. Not the asshole. Your mother is 100% at fault here. You were a vulnerable child grieving the loss of a parent. The fact she wants you to apologize shows what a massive a hole she is. Not the asshole. Low-key screw your mom. That's so sad that she didn't cater to your needs and concerns within the first year of your dad passing. It is not your fault at all, and it's so toxic of your mom to put any of this on you. You were a grieving kid. I couldn't even imagine the pain you felt, and your mom made it about her. Parents often can be very selfish. You are not in the wrong here. If anything, your mom owes you the apology. Not the asshole at all, but your mom is big time. 10 months after your father died, she remarried. I would have felt the same way as you did. She should have realized she had an effing daughter who just lost her father that needed her. She should have put you in therapy and focused on you before she started shagging some guy. No, you're not responsible. In your post you got it 100% right. 10 months is not enough time to grieve a loved one, let alone replace them, and to try and make you fit in with the new arrangement. The wrong is all down to mum being hasty, moving on too quickly, nothing to do with you. And if after 18 years she could not make it right, how is that down to you? Not the asshole. This is beyond Reddit. Mom, Dad, are you getting divorced because of me? Yes. Not the asshole. You should have been her priority at that time and you weren't. It's already a hard enough situation for a kid, and the complete lack of support just makes it so much worse. It was totally unreasonable of her to expect you to just shut down your grief and accept a new father figure. Her refusal to listen to you at the time and her choosing to put blame on you now shows that she is someone who is never going to accept accountability for her own actions. She's always going to want to make this somebody else's fault without ever looking at herself, but that's a her problem, not a you problem, so don't ever let her make you feel like a bad person. You deserve better. Not the asshole. Her marriage is between her and her STBX. You were a child, you had feelings, she didn't care. She still doesn't care. If she asks for an apology again, tell her she is more than welcome, as the adult, to go first. That you will be patiently waiting to hear how sorry she is for the bad decisions she has made. The utter nerve of this person. Not the asshole. Question. Has she always been selfish? Does she ever own her faults? Note. My husband died 9 years ago and I started dating again after only a few months. I had nothing to stop me, physically or emotionally. My in-laws were even happy to see that I was ready to date. I literally talked to them about it when I was first considering dating. That being said, if I'd had a child, that would have been my focus. You should have come first. Has she even apologized to you for being so selfish? Obviously not the asshole. Everything that happened is on her. Not the asshole. You were a child with valid feelings. You absolutely don't need to apologize for voicing them. Not the asshole. You don't have to apologize for something you did as a child, a grieving one at that. You say that fight went on for 5 years, but she was married for 13 after that. It was in no way your fault and she needs to deal with her own mistakes. You were 7. What kind of mother blames a 7-year-old for planting doubt? I have children. The younger one in particular gets mad and tells me she will never be my friend again and I will never get to play with her good markers as long as I live. And I promise, the only thing I've ever thought in the secret part of my soul is, I'm hoping by not being friends now, I'm setting us up to be friends in 15 years. I would have said you are the asshole, because I thought you said 10 years and 17 years old. Nope. 10 months only, for a 7-year-old. Good God op, I am sorry you had to deal with this. Mom should have helped much more when you needed it. She's blaming you for her own mistakes, such in not the asshole. Your mom hopped on someone new after your dad died. She failed to help you grieve or comfort you. She forced you to be parented by this rando when all you wanted was your dad. How could any of this conceivably be your fault? And even if it were your fault, you were a young child at the time. Will this woman not take responsibility for any of her own choices? If you need a third party to tell you this, here it is, it's not your fault. She was an adult and she made her choices. You were a child and you had to live with them. She didn't help you. Her failures are her own. Not the asshole. Apologize to her for being a shitty mom. Not the asshole. Holy shit, not the asshole. She told you she needed you to apologize for her marriage not working out. Damn, your mother is a piece of work and definitely is the asshole here. Not the asshole. There are two people in a marriage and the success or failure is based on those two people alone. Simple solution here. Go to your stepdad and ask him if you are the reason for the failing marriage. Tell him your mother said so and you should apologize to her for it. I am sure you will hear the truth, and the truth does not include you. After that, call your mom and tell her about the talk with your stepdad. The fuck? That's some mother you have there. Not the asshole. You were a child and lost your father. You were left with a mother that moved on and refused to get you help to cope with grief. She's definitely the R. Not the asshole. Your mother, however, major R. She did nothing to help you get over your father's death. Apparently her only priority was her own happiness. Now she wants to come back and blame you for her failed marriage. Nope. Things you said from 7/12 are the reason she's divorced. Not the asshole. You were 7. Children are not responsible for the mental health of adults. NTA, you mom doesn't seem mature enough to be in any relationship if she blames it on a grieving 7-year-old. Maybe OP's reaction to the marriage did plant a seed for the divorce. But that would only make it still mom's fault. When you have a kid, getting married isn't just between you and your prospective spouse. You have to take your kids into account. It sucks, sure, but it's not all about you. If mom had waited a little longer, only 10 months, really, for Op to grieve and maybe to get to know her stepdad more, things could have been different. Not the asshole. Not the asshole. You were a child who just lost their dad. You were 7 years old. Your mom is using this as an excuse for her marriage failing and trying to pin it on you rather than admit her own faults. WTF. Hella not the asshole. You were 7 years old. While you might have needed years to feel ready, she did wait less than an entire year, so it was pretty fast. Now my father did try to tell me I was f***ing up his marriage to my stepmother, but I was 13 and the family scapegoat. I can't remember how long he waited after my mom died to date, but I'm pretty sure it was around a year. There's no way to know if the marriage would have been successful if you hadn't been in the picture. I think my father and stepmother lasted less than a decade after I was kicked out. You're also very right to point out family therapy could have made a difference. A good family therapist could have been extremely helpful all around. Not the asshole. I have to think that this is a subconscious desire to push you away by picking fights, and you should let her. Sounds like you've gotten some therapy, so you know how helpful it can be.